Hello there, sleepy hearts. Tonight, we return to Mystic Falls, where shadows wear familiar faces, and the past refuses to stay buried. We'll walk beside Elena Gilbert as she faces a new darkness. One that looks exactly like her, speaks with her voice, but harbors 5 centuries of cruelty and manipulation. This is the story of the struggle, of Catherine Pierce's return, of love tested by evil wearing the face of someone you die to protect, of battles fought not just against monsters, but against the monster you might become. So, settle in now. Let your eyes close gently. Breathe deeply. And drift into a world where your worst enemy might be your own reflection. And survival means knowing which version of yourself to trust. The summer after the sacrifice should have brought peace. Elena Gilbert sat on her bedroom floor, surrounded by boxes of Jenna's belongings. Each item a sharp reminder that peace was a luxury she'd never truly know. Her aunt's favourite scarf still smelled faintly of her perfume, and Eleanor pressed it to her face, breathing in the ghost of someone who had tried so hard to be enough, who had died because Elena existed, because doppelganger blood ran through her veins. Jeremy was downstairs, probably high on whatever he could find to numb the pain of losing another guardian. Alaric had stepped up, moving into the Gilbert house to watch over them, but he was drowning in his own grief, haunted by Jenna's death in ways that made him drink more and smile less. The house felt like a mausoleum, each room echoing with absences too large to fill. Stefan was gone. That absence hurt differently, a constant ache beneath Elena's ribs that never quite faded. He'd left with Klaus as part of a deal to save Damon's life, compelled to turn off his humanity to become the Ripper again. Somewhere out in the world, Stefan Salvatore was killing people, feeding without remorse, buried so deep in darkness that Eleanor didn't know if she'd recognize him anymore. But Damon was there. Damon, who'd been Stefan's enemy and then his brother, and now stood as Elena's only connection to the vampire world that had consumed her life. He visited the Gilbert house every evening, sitting with Elena in comfortable silence or engaging in the kind of honest conversation that Stefan had always shied away from. Where Stefan protected Elena from hard truths, Damon delivered them with brutal clarity, softened by genuine care. "You need to eat something," Damon said one evening in late July, appearing in Eleanor's doorway with that supernatural silence that should have startled her, but had become familiar. "You're getting that translucent look humans get when they forget food is necessary for survival." Elena looked up from Jenna's journal, the one she'd found tucked in a nightstand, filled with anxious notes about raising teenagers and trying to be worthy of Miranda's trust. "I'm fine." "You're not fine," Damon countered, leaning against the doorframe with studied casualness that didn't hide his concern. "You're grieving. You're allowed to grieve, Elena. You don't have to be strong every second of every day. "If I'm not strong, I'll fall apart," Elena said quietly, "and I can't afford to fall apart. Not with Stefan out there somewhere, not with Klaus still a threat, not with Jeremy barely holding on downstairs." Damon crossed the room and sat beside her on the floor, taking Jenna's journal from her hands and setting it aside gently. "Then fall apart for 5 minutes. Right here, right now. I'll catch you. I promise." So Elena did. She cried into Damon's shoulder while he held her with surprising tenderness, his hand stroking her hair, his voice murmuring reassurances that felt more honest and comforting. He didn't tell her everything would be okay. He just told her she'd survived this the same way she'd survived Wickery Bridge, the same way she'd survived the sacrifice. Survival was what Elena Gilbert did, even when part of her wished she didn't have to. What Elena didn't know, couldn't know, was that Catherine Pierce had been watching. Catherine, who had spent the summer lurking in the shadows of Mystic Falls, studying Elena's life with the kind of obsessive attention that came from seeing yourself reflected in someone else's face. Catherine had been there at the Lockwood Mansion, playing supernatural games with werewolves and vampires. She'd been there in the town square, invisible among crowds. She'd been everywhere Elena was, learning her mannerisms, her speech patterns, the small gestures that made Elena herself. The first time Elena truly became aware of Catherine's presence was a Tuesday afternoon in early August. Caroline had insisted on a girls' day, desperate for normalcy, desperate to pretend they were just teenagers shopping for school supplies instead of supernatural survivors navigating trauma. They were in the drugstore picking up shampoo when Elena caught sight of her own reflection in a security mirror. Except the reflection was wrong. It moved a half-second too late, smiled when Elena wasn't smiling, tilted its head at an angle Eleanor's neck wasn't tilted, and then the reflection winked, deliberate and cruel, before moving normally again. Elena's breath caught, her hand flying to Caroline's arm. "Did you see that?" "See what?" Caroline asked, following Eleanor's gaze to the now normal mirror. "My reflection. It moved wrong. It..." Eleanor stopped, hearing how insane that sounded. "Never mind. I'm just tired." But she wasn't imagining it. Catherine was playing games, revealing herself in small ways, creating doubt and paranoia. Over the following days, Eleanor would catch glimpses of herself in places she hadn't been. Bonnie mentioned seeing Eleanor at the grill when Eleanor had been home all evening. Matt reported a conversation with Eleanor that Eleanor had no memory of having. Small inconsistencies that accumulated into terrifying certainty. Someone who looked exactly like her was moving through Mystic Falls, living pieces of her life. Damon believed her immediately when she finally voiced her suspicions. "Catherine's back," he said, his expression going cold and dangerous. "Of course she's back. She's running from Klaus. And Mystic Falls is the one place she has history, has leverage, has people she can manipulate." "Why hasn't she just approached us?" Eleanor asked. "Why the games?" "Because Catherine is incapable of directness," Damon said bitterly. "She always has an angle, always has a plan within a plan. She's testing us, seeing how we react, figuring out how to use us for whatever she wants." The confrontation came at the Lockwood Mansion during the annual Masquerade Ball, an event Carol Lockwood insisted on maintaining despite her son Tyler's recent departure from town. The theme was fitting, Elena thought, as she dressed in the gown Caroline had picked out for her. Everyone in Mystic Falls wore masks, hiding what they really were, pretending at normalcy while monsters walked among them. Eleanor descended the grand staircase into the ballroom filled with masked figures, searching for familiar faces among the strangers. Caroline appeared at her elbow, vampire beautiful, in a silver gown that caught the light. Bonnie stood near the punch bowl, her eyes tracking supernatural movements with the awareness that came from being a powerful witch. And Damon waited by the windows, his mask doing nothing to hide the predatory grace that marked him as something other than human. Then Eleanor saw herself. Across the ballroom, wearing an identical gown, an identical mask, stood her exact duplicate. Catherine Pierce met Eleanor's eyes and smiled, slow and cruel, before turning and disappearing into the crowd. "She's here," Eleanor said urgently to Damon. "Catherine's here. Same dress, same mask. She's pretending to be me." Damon's jaw tightened. "Stay close to Caroline and Bonnie. Don't go anywhere alone. Catherine won't make a move in a crowd this size, but the second you're isolated, she'll strike." But Catherine was always 10 steps ahead. She'd already isolated her target, already made her move. Stefan appeared in the ballroom doorway, and Eleanor's heart stuttered at the sight of him. He looked wrong though. His eyes were hard, his posture too relaxed, his smile empty of warmth. This was Stefan without his humanity, Stefan as the Ripper, Stefan as Klaus's puppet. "Hello, Elena," Stefan said, and his voice was flat, emotionless. Nothing like the boy who had pulled her from Wickery Bridge and promised to protect her. "We need to talk." Eleanor followed him onto a balcony, desperate for any connection to the person he'd been, willing to risk Catherine's games for a chance to reach him. The night air was warm and still, carrying the scent of late summer flowers and the underlying copper smell of blood that Eleanor had learned to recognize. "Stefan," Elena said carefully, "are you okay? Is Klaus—" "Klaus is fine," Stefan interrupted. "I'm fine. Everything's fine, Elena. I turned off my humanity and suddenly everything is so much easier. No guilt about the people I kill. No pain over what I've lost. No overwhelming need to protect you from every threat in the supernatural world. I'm free." "You're not free," Elena said, her voice breaking. "You're buried. The real you is buried under Klaus's compulsion and your own fear of feeling. But I know you're still in there, Stefan. I know you can hear me." Stefan laughed, sharp and humorless. "You don't know anything. You're a naive human girl playing in a world of monsters, convinced that love conquers all. It doesn't, Elena. Love is weakness. Love is what gets people killed. Ask Jenna how well your love protected her." The cruelty of it stole Elena's breath. Stefan would never say that, could never weaponize Jenna's death that way unless his humanity was truly gone. She stepped back, tears burning her eyes, and Stefan's expression flickered for just a moment into something that might have been regret. Then Catherine appeared, stepping out of the shadows wearing Elena's face, and everything descended into chaos. She moved with inhuman speed, grabbing Stefan and driving a stake through his hand, pinning him to the balcony railing. Stefan's cry of pain was raw and real, his face contorting in agony. "That's for abandoning me in 1864, Catherine said pleasantly. "And this," she twisted the stake viciously, "is for choosing her over me, the pathetic human doppelganger who can't even keep her family alive." Elena lunged forward, but Catherine caught her effortlessly, one hand wrapping around Elena's throat, squeezing just hard enough to make breathing difficult. "Hello, Elena. I've been looking forward to properly meeting you. You're wearing my face, living my life, stealing my men. It's really quite rude." "Let her go," Stefan ground out, struggling against the stake through his hand. And for a moment, Eleanor heard emotion in his voice, heard the humanity Catherine's torture was dragging to the surface. "Why should I?" Catherine asked. "She's nothing. A cosmic copy, a placeholder waiting to die in some ritual. At least I had the sense to run, to choose survival over sacrifice. What's your excuse, Elena? Why are you still here playing hero when you know how this story ends?" Damon crashed through the balcony doors, vampire face on, fury radiating from every line of his body. Catherine released Elena and faced him with a smile that held centuries of history and manipulation. "Hello, Damon," Catherine purred. "Miss me?" "Not even a little bit," Damon said. But his eyes betrayed him, showing the complicated tangle of emotions Catherine inspired. He'd loved her first, had become a vampire for her, had spent over a century believing she was entombed beneath a church, learning she'd never loved him, had never been worth saving, had broken something in Damon that wasn't fully healed. Catherine's expression softened into something almost genuine. "You were always my favorite, Damon. So passionate, so willing to burn the world for love. Stefan was the good brother, the moral one, but you were the one who understood me. We're the same, you and I. We take what we want and damn the consequences." "We're nothing alike," Damon said. "I've spent the last century trying to be better than I was when I knew you. You spent it running and scheming and leaving destruction in your wake. And yet, here we are," Catherine said. "The Salvatore brothers and the doppelgangers. History repeating itself with different faces. Don't you find it poetic?" She vanished before Damon could respond, moving with the supernatural speed that came from 5 centuries of vampire existence. One moment she was there, the next she was gone, leaving only the faint scent of her perfume, and Stefan pinned to the railing, his face twisted in pain and confusion as his humanity struggled against compulsion. Elena rushed to Stefan, pulling the stake from his hand with trembling fingers. He healed immediately, vampire regeneration closing the wound, but his eyes remained haunted, flickering between the emptiness of no humanity and something deeper, something that remembered love. "I can't stay," Stefan said roughly. "Klaus will know I've been here, will punish me for seeing you. I have to go back." "Then go," Elena whispered. "But know that I'm not giving up on you, Stefan. I will find a way to bring you back." Stefan's expression cracked, just for a moment, revealing the boy beneath the monster. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night, leaving Eleanor and Damon alone on the balcony, with the weight of Catherine's return pressing down on them. "She's here for a reason," Damon said quietly. "Catherine doesn't do anything without 3 backup plans and an exit strategy. She's running from Klaus, but she's also playing a game we don't understand yet. We need to figure out what she wants before she destroys everyone we care about." Eleanor nodded, her mind already working through possibilities, through the chess moves Catherine might be making. The summer was ending. School would start soon. And somewhere in Mystic Falls, Catherine Pierce was weaving webs of manipulation that would trap them all if they weren't careful. The masquerade ball continued below, oblivious partygoers dancing and drinking, unaware that a 500-year-old vampire had just declared war on their town. Elena looked at Damon, at the complicated man who had become her anchor in Stefan's absence, and she understood that the struggle was just beginning. Catherine was back, and nothing would ever be simple again. The curse of the sun and moon was ancient, older than Mystic Falls, older than the founding families, stretching back through centuries of supernatural history. Eleanor learned about it in pieces, fragments of truth delivered by reluctant vampires and witches who understood that knowledge was both weapon and burden. It's a curse that binds vampires and werewolves to their weaknesses, Elijah Mikkelsen explained, standing in the Salvatore parlor with the elegant stillness of someone who had lived 1,000 years. He was beautiful in the way all original vampires were beautiful, with an old-world formality that made modern vampires seem crude and unfinished. Vampires burn in sunlight. Werewolves are slaves to the full moon, transforming in agony with no control over their beasts. Break the curse, and vampires walk freely in daylight. Werewolves choose when to shift, mastering their dual nature rather than being mastered by it. And breaking it requires a sacrifice, Elena said, her voice steady despite the dread pooling in her stomach. She'd known, somehow, from the moment Elijah started speaking, that this curse would demand her blood, her life, her existence, as the cosmic duplicate created for exactly this purpose. The ritual is specific, Elijah continued, his dark eyes holding sympathy that felt genuine despite coming from a creature who had witnessed countless human deaths. A vampire must die. A werewolf must die. A witch channels the power. And the Petrova doppelganger must be drained of blood, her death, releasing the magic needed to break the curse that has bound supernatural beings for millennia. Damon's voice was cold fury, barely contained. So Elena dies. That's the solution. The universe creates doppelgangers specifically to murder them in rituals they had no part in designing. I'm sorry, Elijah said, and he sounded like he meant it. Catherine ran 500 years ago when she learned of the curse, turned herself into a vampire to escape her fate. But Klaus has been searching for the next Petrova doppelganger ever since. And now he's found Elena. Klaus Mikkelsen arrived in Mystic Falls on a Thursday in late September, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees with his presence. He was handsome in a dangerous way, with a British accent that made cruelty sound civilized, and eyes that held a millennium of violence disguised as charm. He was a hybrid, born of a werewolf father and witch mother, later turned vampire by the spell that created all original vampires. But his werewolf nature had been locked away by his mother's curse, leaving him incomplete, furious at the missing half of his power. "Hello, Elena," Klaus said, appearing in the high school parking lot as Elena walked to her car after classes. His smile was pleasant, his posture relaxed, but Elena felt danger radiating from him like heat from a flame. "I've been looking forward to meeting you, the latest Petrova doppelganger. You look exactly like Catherine, exactly like Tatia before her. It's remarkable how nature repeats itself." Elena's hand tightened on her car keys, the metal digging into her palm, grounding her against the terror threatening to overwhelm her. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted," Klaus said simply. "To break the curse my mother placed on me, to reclaim my werewolf nature, to become the hybrid I was meant to be. And for that, I need you to die. But not yet. First, I need to ensure all the pieces are in place. The vampire, the werewolf, the witch, everything must be perfect for the ritual." He moved closer, and Eleanor fought every instinct screaming at her to run. Running from Klaus was pointless. He was the apex predator, the original hybrid in waiting, 1,000 years old and impossibly powerful. If he wanted her dead right now, she would be dead. The fact that she was still breathing meant he needed her alive, at least temporarily. I could compel you, Klaus mused, studying her face with academic interest. Make you forget this conversation, make you pliant and willing when the time comes for sacrifice. But where's the sport in that? I prefer my victims aware, fighting. Their fear makes the ritual more potent. I won't let you kill me, Elena said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. I'll find a way to stop this. Klaus laughed, genuine amusement lighting his face. Catherine said the same thing 5 centuries ago. She ran, turned herself into a vampire, delayed the inevitable. But here you are, Elena Gilbert, the next doppelganger, the next sacrifice. You can run, but the universe will simply create another duplicate. The curse demands Petrova blood. One way or another, it will have it. Then he was gone, vanishing with supernatural speed, leaving Elena standing in the parking lot with the weight of prophecy crushing her chest. She would die, not might die, not could die if things went wrong, but would die. The ritual demanded it. Klaus would ensure it, and every moment of her remaining life was borrowed time, counting down to inevitable sacrifice. Elena made her decision that night, sitting in her bedroom surrounded by the people she loved. Damon, Bonnie, Caroline, Alaric, Jeremy. The faces of her found family, the people who had suffered because she existed, because doppelganger blood made her valuable and dangerous in equal measure. I'll do it, Elena said quietly. I'll be the sacrifice. If my death breaks the curse, if it ends Klaus's hunt for Petrova blood, then at least it means something. At least no other doppelganger has to die after me. Absolutely not, Damon said immediately, his voice sharp with protective fury. We'll find another way. We always find another way. There is no other way, Elena said. Klaus has been planning this for 1,000 years. He's not going to give up because we ask nicely. And I'm tired, Damon. I'm tired of people dying to keep me alive. My parents, Jenna, John. How many more people have to sacrifice themselves before I accept that maybe I'm the one who should die? Bonnie's voice was thick with tears and determination. What if you didn't stay dead? What if we found a way to bring you back? The spell Bonnie proposed was ancient and dangerous, requiring a Bennett witch to channel massive amounts of power through a life tether. John Gilbert, Eleanor's biological father, volunteered immediately despite their complicated history, despite the years of distance and resentment between them. Let me do this, John said, his voice quiet but firm. Let me be your father in the way that matters most. I'll be your anchor, Elena. You'll die in the ritual, the curse will break, and then you'll come back. My life for yours. It's the least I can do after giving you away, after all the mistakes I've made. Elena looked at the man who had failed her in so many ways, but was now offering the ultimate sacrifice, and she felt something shift in her chest. You don't have to do this. I can't ask you to die for me. You're not asking, John said simply. I'm choosing. And for once in my selfish life, I'm choosing something that actually matters. The ritual was set for the next full moon. Klaus assembled his components with meticulous precision. For the vampire sacrifice, he chose Jenna Summers, Elena's beloved aunt, who had taken her in after her parents died. who had tried so hard to be enough despite her fear and inexperience. Klaus compelled Jenna, fed her his blood, then had one of his hybrids kill her, forcing her transition into vampirism against her will. Elena watched Jenna wake as a vampire in a holding cell, watched confusion and horror cross her aunt's face as she understood what had been done to her. Jenna's humanity was still intact, her love for Eleanor and Jeremy still fierce despite the bloodlust burning in her new vampire veins. "Eleanor," Jenna said, her voice breaking. "What's happening to me? I can hear everything, smell everything. I'm so thirsty, and I don't understand." "Klaus turned you," Elena said, tears streaming down her face, her hands pressed against the invisible barrier that kept her from reaching Jenna. "He's going to use you in the ritual, as the vampire component." "Jenna, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. All of this is because of what I am." "This isn't your fault," Jenna said fiercely. "None of this is your fault, Elena. You didn't ask to be a doppelganger. You didn't create this curse. Don't you dare blame yourself for the evil other people choose to do." For the werewolf component, Klaus had options. Tyler Lockwood had recently triggered his werewolf curse by accidentally killing someone, making him a viable sacrifice. But Tyler was Caroline's friend, part of their group, someone Elena had known since childhood. Klaus chose instead to use Jules, a werewolf from another pack, someone whose death would cause less emotional damage to his primary sacrifice. The night of the ritual arrived with terrible inevitability. Klaus had chosen the old quarry outside of town, a place where the veil between worlds was thin, where magic flowed like water through cracks in reality. Torches burned in a circle, casting flickering shadows across the assembled victims. Elena stood at the center, her wrists bound with rope that burned with vervain, her body trembling with fear she refused to voice. Klaus moved through the ritual with practiced efficiency, his voice steady as he recited words in languages dead for centuries. He killed Jules first, snapping her neck with casual brutality, her body convulsing into wolf form as she died. Then he turned to Jenna, and Eleanor screamed against her gag, struggling against her bonds, desperate to stop what was about to happen. "I'm sorry, Eleanor," Jenna said, her eyes clear and loving despite the vampire darkness that lurked behind them. "I love you. Take care of Jeremy. Be happy. Don't let my death be another weight you carry." Klaus drove a stake through Jenna's heart with surgical precision, and Elena watched her aunt's body crumble to ash, watched the woman who had tried to be a mother disappear into nothing. The grief was overwhelming, crushing, stealing Elena's breath and her will to continue existing. Then Klaus turned to Elena, and she saw death approaching with ancient eyes and a charming smile. He had a ceremonial blade, old and stained with the blood of previous rituals, and he pressed it to Elena's throat with almost gentle pressure. "Thank you for your sacrifice," Klaus said quietly. "Your death frees me from 1,000 years of bondage. That should bring some comfort." It didn't, but Elena closed her eyes and thought of everyone she loved, everyone who would survive because she died. She thought of Damon and Stefan, of Bonnie and Caroline, of Jeremy, who would have a chance at a normal life without supernatural threats targeting his sister. She thought of her parents, of Jenna, of John, who waited to trade his life for hers, and she let go, surrendering to the blade that opened her throat, to the blood that poured out in hot rushes, to the darkness that claimed her consciousness with surprising gentleness. Death felt like floating, like releasing every burden she'd ever carried. Elena drifted in silence and peace, feeling her heartbeat slow, stutter, stop, feeling her lungs empty and still, feeling every part of her shut down with the finality of true death. Then she felt the pullback, sharp and insistent. Bonnie's magic wrapped around her like rope. John's life force flowing into her empty shell, restarting her heart, refilling her lungs, dragging her back from death into agonizing life. Eleanor gasped, her eyes flying open, her hand flying to her throat where Klaus had cut her. But the skin was smooth, unmarked, healed by the magic that had resurrected her. She was alive. The spell had worked. John's sacrifice had brought her back. Elena woke in her own bed hours later, disoriented and aching, every nerve ending screaming with the memory of death. Beside her bed lay John Gilbert's body, his hand still outstretched toward her, his face peaceful in death. And on her pillow rested a letter, his final words written in careful script. She read through tears that blurred the words, absorbing his apology, his love, his hope that she would live fully and without regret. He'd been a terrible father in life, but in death, he'd given her everything, had traded his existence for hers without hesitation. Klaus had succeeded. The ritual had worked, breaking the curse that bound his werewolf nature. He was a true hybrid now, vampire and werewolf combined, possessing strengths of both species with none of the traditional weaknesses. He could walk in sunlight, heal from nearly any wound, compel both vampires and humans. He was the apex predator made manifest, and he'd achieved it by draining Eleanor Gilbert's blood and destroying her family. But Eleanor was alive, broken, traumatized, carrying new weight of survivor's guilt and grief, but alive. And as she sat in her room surrounded by death and resurrection, she made a promise to everyone who had died to keep her breathing. She would make it mean something. She would live fiercely and fully. She would fight against the darkness Klaus represented, and she would find Stefan, would bring him back from whatever abyss Klaus had dragged him into. The sacrifice was complete, the curse was broken, and Elena Gilbert's story continued, written in blood and magic and the terrible cost of supernatural existence. The summer stretched endlessly after the ritual, each day blurring into the next with the weight of grief and absence. Elena existed in a strange state of half-living, going through motions that felt increasingly hollow. She woke, she ate when people reminded her. She pretended to care about senior year preparations, when really, all she could think about was the empty space where Stefan should be, and the 2 new graves in the Mystic Falls Cemetery. Jenna and John were buried side by side in a quiet ceremony, attended by too few people. Eleanor stood between Jeremy and Alaric, watching coffins lowered into earth, and she felt nothing. The grief was too big to process, too overwhelming to feel. So instead, there was just numbness, cotton wool distance between Elena and the rest of the world that made everything seem muffled and far away. Jeremy retreated into drugs with frightening speed, seeking oblivion in pills and powder that made his eyes glassy and his words slurred. Elena found him passed out in his room more nights than not, his phone showing messages from dealers Elena didn't recognize, his arms showing track marks Elena pretended not to see. She knew she should intervene, should get him help, should be the responsible older sister their parents had raised, but she was drowning in her own pain, and didn't have the strength to save anyone else. Alaric moved into the Gilbert house officially, taking the guest room and attempting to provide the guardianship two traumatized teenagers desperately needed. But Alaric was drowning too, haunted by Jenna's death in ways that made him drink bourbon for breakfast and stare at her photos for hours. He tried to be present, tried to cook meals and enforce curfews and ask about their days, but his heart wasn't in it. How could it be when the woman he loved had died a vampire, aware and terrified, used as a pawn in supernatural games she'd never asked to play? Stefan's absence was different from Jenna and John's deaths. They were gone permanently, beyond reach, except in memory and dreams. But Stefan was alive somewhere, breathing and moving and existing. He was just doing it without his humanity, compelled by Klaus to turn off every emotion that made him, Stefan Salvatore, instead of the Ripper. Elena tracked reports obsessively, following news stories about unexplained deaths across the south. Bodies drained of blood, throats torn out, victims left in positions that suggested the killer wanted them found. The Ripper's signature was distinctive, brutal, a level of violence that went beyond feeding into something artistic and horrifying. Each article Elena read felt like a knife to the chest, confirmation that the boy she loved was buried under so much darkness she didn't know how to reach him. Damon became her anchor through the worst of it. He appeared every evening around sunset, letting himself into the Gilbert house with the familiarity of someone who belonged there. Sometimes he brought dinner, forcing Elena to eat even when food tasted like ash. Sometimes he just sat with her in silence, understanding that she didn't need conversation, just presence. And sometimes he talked, telling her stories about Stefan before the Ripper, before Catherine, when Stefan was just a 17-year-old boy in 1864 who believed in honor and love and doing the right thing. He's still in there, Damon insisted one night in late June, sitting on Elena's bed while she stared at the ceiling. The humanity switch doesn't erase who you are. It just buries it deep enough that you can pretend you don't care. But Stefan cares, Elena. Even now, even with Klaus's compulsion and his humanity off, some part of him remembers you. How do you know? Elena asked, her voice hollow. Because I've turned off my humanity, Damon said quietly. More than once over the last century and a half. And even in the darkest moments, even when I was convinced I felt nothing, there were always ghosts, memories that wouldn't quite die, faces that haunted me despite my best efforts to forget them. Stefan has that with you. I'm certain of it. Eleanor wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to hope that Stefan could be saved. But hope felt dangerous, like setting herself up for more devastating loss. Safer to accept that Stefan was gone, that the boy who had saved her from Wickery Bridge no longer existed except in memory. The time she spent with Damon began changing something fundamental in Elena's chest. Where Stefan had always treated her like fragile glass that might shatter, Damon spoke to her like she was strong enough to handle truth. Where Stefan had hidden ugly realities to protect her innocence, Damon delivered brutal honesty with the expectation that Eleanor could bear it. And she found she preferred Damon's approach, preferred being treated as a partner rather than someone who needed constant protection. They talked about everything through those long summer nights, about Damon's past, about the century and a half he'd spent loving Catherine and then hating her, about his complicated relationship with Stefan that was equal parts devotion and resentment, about Eleanor's fears for the future, her guilt over the deaths piling up around her, her uncertainty about who she was beyond the doppelganger curse that defined her existence. And slowly, imperceptibly, Eleanor's feelings shifted. The gratitude she felt for Damon's presence became something deeper, warmer, more dangerous. She found herself looking forward to his visits, found herself noticing details like the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled genuinely, or the unexpected gentleness in his hands when he touched her. Found herself feeling things she had no right to feel while Stefan was out there suffering. Caroline noticed, of course. She cornered Eleanor in early July with vampire directness that left no room for denial. "You have feelings for Damon," Caroline said. Not quite an accusation, but close. "Elena, Stefan has been gone for 2 months and you're already developing feelings for his brother." "I'm not," Elena protested, but the lie tasted bitter on her tongue. "I'm just grateful for his support. He's been there when I needed someone." "It's more than gratitude," Caroline said gently. "I can see it in how you look at him, how you light up when he walks into a room. And I'm not judging you, Elena. I'm just worried. Damon is complicated and dangerous, and he's loved you since the moment he met you. If you give him hope, if you let this become something real, it will destroy Stefan when he gets his humanity back." If he gets his humanity back, Elena thought, but didn't say. Because that was the fear underneath everything, the possibility that Stefan would never flip the switch again, would remain the Ripper until Klaus grew bored and killed him, or until Stefan did something so terrible that he couldn't live with himself even without emotions. Jeremy's situation worsened as summer progressed. He started seeing ghosts, dead girlfriends appearing in his room at night. Vicky Donovan, who had died in the early days of Elena's introduction to the supernatural world. Anna, the vampire Jeremy had loved, who had been killed by John Gilbert in the Tomb Massacre. They appeared to Jeremy solid and real, talking to him, touching him, driving him deeper into addiction and instability. "They're not real," Bonnie insisted when Jeremy finally confessed what he was experiencing. "The Gilbert ring has brought you back from death multiple times. Each resurrection thins the veil between you and the other side. You're seeing ghosts because you've died too many times, because you're caught between worlds." But to Jeremy, the ghost felt real. More real than the empty house, more real than his drug-hazed days, more real than the sister who looked at him with guilt-filled eyes and couldn't quite meet his gaze. He spent hours talking to dead girls, preferring their company to the living people who reminded him of everything he'd lost. Elena's 18th birthday approached in late June, and she couldn't muster any enthusiasm for it. Caroline tried to plan a party, tried to inject normalcy into their supernatural chaos, but Eleanor shut it down with unusual firmness. "I don't want to celebrate," Eleanor said. "Jenna and John are dead. Stefan is gone. Jeremy is falling apart. What exactly am I supposed to be happy about?" So the day passed quietly, marked only by a phone call from Stefan that lasted 30 seconds and broke Elena's heart into smaller pieces. His voice was cold, empty of affection, delivering birthday wishes that sounded like obligation rather than love. And when Eleanor tried to reach him, tried to remind him of who they'd been together, Stefan laughed and hung up. Darman found her crying on the porch that night, and he sat beside her without speaking, just offering his presence and his understanding, and Elena leaned into him, let herself be held, let herself take comfort from the wrong Salvatore brother, because the right one was lost to darkness. Summer ended with no resolution, no rescue, no happy ending. Stefan remained with Klaus, humanity off, killing his way across the country. Jeremy remained caught between living and dead, talking to ghosts that only he could see. And Elena remained in Mystic Falls, grieving and guilty, and falling for Damon Salvatore, despite every reason it was wrong. School would start soon. Senior year awaited, and somewhere out in the world, Stefan Salvatore continued his violent descent into darkness, while Elena tried to survive his absence. The search for Stefan led Elena to Tennessee in early September, following breadcrumbs of violence that painted a horrifying picture of who Stefan had become. Damon drove, his hands tight on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched with the particular tension that came from hunting his own brother. Elena sat in the passenger seat, watching scenery blur past, her stomach tight with dread and desperate hope in equal measure. They found Stefan in a bar outside Memphis, playing pool with humans who had no idea they were drinking with a predator. He looked different, wrong. His hair was messier, his clothes darker, his entire posture radiating dangerous unpredictability that the Stefan Elena knew had always carefully suppressed. When he saw them walk in, his smile was sharp and cruel, nothing like the gentle warmth Elena remembered. Well, well, Stefan said, not bothering to look up from his shot. The rescue committee has arrived. How touching. Did you bring balloons? Maybe a cake that says, "Come home, we miss you." Stefan, Elena said, her voice catching on his name. Please, we need to talk. We're talking now, Stefan replied, sinking another ball with casual precision. Or I'm talking, and you're standing there looking like a kicked puppy. Same difference. Damon's voice was carefully controlled. Klaus sent us to check on you, make sure you're staying on task, not getting distracted by inconvenient humanity. It was a lie, transparent and obvious, but Stefan played along with a smirk that made Elena's stomach turn. How thoughtful. Tell Klaus I'm doing exactly what he wants. Ripper Stefan is back and better than ever. No conscience, no guilt, no annoying need to protect fragile humans who can't stop getting themselves into supernatural trouble. Elena stepped closer despite Damon's warning hand on her arm. I don't believe you. I don't believe your humanity is completely gone. You called me on my birthday, Stefan. Why would you do that if you didn't still feel something? Muscle memory, Stefan said, finally looking at her with eyes that held no recognition, no love, nothing but empty amusement. 160 years of being pathetically devoted to various women creates patterns that are hard to break even when you stop caring. But trust me, Elena, I feel absolutely nothing when I look at you. You're just another human. Breakable, forgettable, completely beneath my notice. The words hit like physical blows, each one landing precisely where it would cause maximum damage. Elena felt tears burning her eyes and hated herself for the weakness, for letting Stefan see how thoroughly he could still hurt her. Then Klaus appeared, materializing from the shadows with that predatory grace that marked original vampires. Stefan, we have work to do. Stop playing with your ex-girlfriend and let's move. Of course, Stefan said, abandoning his pool cue without a backward glance. Just give me 1 minute. He crossed to Elena in 2 strides, and for a moment she thought she saw something flicker in his expression. some ghost of the boy who had loved her. But then he spoke, his voice pitched low enough that only she could hear. Go home, Elena. Forget about me. I'm not worth saving, and trying to reach me will only get you killed. Klaus owns me now, every part of me, and I'm perfectly happy letting him. Then he was gone, following Klaus out the back door, leaving Eleanor and Damon standing in a bar that smelled like stale beer and broken dreams. The trip to Chicago happened 2 weeks later. Another lead followed. Another desperate attempt to reach Stefan through the wall he'd built around himself. They found him in a warehouse that had once been a speakeasy during Prohibition, standing beside a blonde woman who moved with the distinctive grace of an original vampire. Rebecca, Damon said, recognition and wariness in his voice. Klaus's baby sister. This keeps getting better. Rebecca Mickelson was beautiful in the dangerous way all original vampires were beautiful, with an edge of cruelty softened by genuine vulnerability. She looked at Stefan with open adoration, her hand possessive on his arm, and Eleanor felt jealousy burn hot and acidic in her chest. Who's this? Rebecca asked, studying Elena with predatory interest. Oh, let me guess. The doppelganger. The human Stefan was supposedly in love with before Klaus fixed him. Fix me, Elena repeated, looking at Stefan with desperate hope. Is that what Klaus did? Compulsion? Stefan, if you're being compelled, we can break it. We can help you. Stefan's laugh was harsh and humorless. Nobody fixed me, Elena. Klaus freed me, reminded me who I really am beneath all that self-righteous humanity. I'm the Ripper. I always have been. The last century of pretending to be good was just performance, playing a role I thought I should play. But this is the real me, the monster I've been suppressing since 1864. Rebecca smiled, pleased with his answer, and kissed Stefan's cheek with casual ownership that made Elena's hands clench into fists. He's so much better this way. No guilt, no brooding, no constant self-flagellation over every kill. Just pure predatory instinct. It's glorious. Show them, Klaus said from across the room, his voice carrying that tone of command that made even original vampires straighten. Show them what you really are, Stefan. What you've always been. Stefan moved with inhuman speed, grabbing a human woman who had been compelled to stand motionless in the corner. His face changed, veins darkening beneath his eyes, fangs descending, and he bit into her throat with vicious efficiency. But he didn't just feed. He tore, ripping flesh, spraying blood across the warehouse floor, creating art from violence in ways that made bile rise in Eleanor's throat. When he finished, the woman was dead, her body a mangled ruin that barely looked human anymore. Stefan stood over her corpse with blood coating his face and hands, and he smiled with genuine satisfaction that had nothing to do with feeding and everything to do with destruction. That's the Ripper, Klaus said conversationally. Not just a vampire who feeds, a vampire who kills with artistry, who makes every death a statement. Stefan has been suppressing this nature for over a century, drinking animal blood, pretending he could be civilized. But give him permission to embrace what he is, and this is the result. Beautiful, isn't it? Elena felt her legs go weak, felt Damon's hand steady her as the full horror of Stefan's transformation hit her. This wasn't compulsion. This wasn't Klaus forcing Stefan to behave against his will. This was Stefan choosing darkness, choosing violence, choosing to be the monster he'd spent a century and a half fighting. Stefan, please, Elena whispered. This isn't you. The real you is buried under Klaus's influence, under the choice to turn off your humanity. But I know you're still in there. I know you can hear me. Stefan wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his hand, studying the crimson streak with clinical interest. You keep saying that like it's true, like there's some noble vampire waiting to be rescued from the evil vampire. But what if there's just me, Elena? What if the monster is all I've ever been, and the good guy was the lie? He crossed her, invading her space with predatory intensity, and Elena forced herself not to step back, not to show the fear coursing through her veins. Stefan leaned close, his breath warm against her ear, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. I remember loving you. I remember thinking you were special, different, worth protecting. But I don't feel it anymore. Looking at you now, all I feel is hungry. You're just meat, Elena. Warm blood in a fragile package. And if Klaus wasn't saving you for his hybrid experiments, I'd drain you dry right here and feel absolutely nothing except satisfaction. Tears streamed down Elena's face, hot and unstoppable, and she saw something flicker in Stefan's expression before he shuttered it completely. For just a moment, she glimpsed pain beneath the cruelty, humanity struggling against the darkness he'd embraced. You're lying, Elena said, her voice shaking but certain. You feel something right now. I can see it, Stefan. Whatever you buried is not completely gone. Rebecca appeared at Stefan's side, her expression shifting to possessive jealousy. Nick, can we please get rid of her? She's boring and pathetic, and I'm tired of watching Stefan pretend he doesn't care when clearly she still affects him. Klaus studied the scene with ancient eyes that had witnessed countless human dramas play out across millennia. No, let her hope. Let her believe she can save him. It makes the eventual revelation that he's truly lost so much more devastating. The weeks that followed blurred together in a nightmare of failed rescue attempts and mounting evidence that Stefan was beyond reach. Elena tracked him across 3 states, following the trail of bodies he left behind. Each victim was drained and displayed, the Ripper's signature growing more elaborate and artistic with each kill. Bonnie tried locating spells that failed against Klaus's protection magic. Caroline attempted an intervention that ended with Stefan mocking her vampire control and suggesting she'd be prettier if she stopped trying so hard. Even Alaric made the trip to confront his former drinking buddy, only to be dismissed with cruel commentary about Jenna's death and how pathetic it was that Alaric had fallen for someone so weak. Through it all, Damon remained steady, driving Elena to each new location, standing beside her through each devastating failure, picking up the pieces when she fell apart. And Elena found herself leaning on him more and more, finding comfort in his presence that went beyond friendship or gratitude. Maybe Klaus is right, Elena said one night in a motel room somewhere in Arkansas, her voice hollow with exhausted despair. Maybe Stefan is lost. Maybe I'm chasing a ghost of who he used to be, while the real Stefan has chosen to be the Ripper. Then we accept it, Damon said quietly. We stop chasing him. We let him live the life he's chosen, and we go home, and we figure out how to exist without him. Eleanor looked at Damon, really looked at him, and saw devotion in his eyes that had nothing to do with Stefan and everything to do with her. Saw patience and understanding and love that expected nothing in return. And she felt something shift in her chest, some fundamental realignment of her heart's geography. What if I can't stop loving him? Elena whispered. Then you love him, Damon said simply. But you love him from a distance. You love the memory of who he was without destroying yourself, trying to resurrect a ghost. And maybe, eventually, you make room for other feelings, for other people who love you and are actually present to show it. He didn't say more, didn't press or demand or make declarations, just offered truth and waited for Elena to decide what to do with it. They returned to Mystic Falls in late September, abandoning the search, accepting defeat. Stefan remained with Klaus, remained the Ripper, remained lost to darkness that might never release him. And Elena began the painful process of letting go, of accepting that sometimes love wasn't enough to save someone who didn't want to be saved. The last communication came via text message in early October. 3 words from Stefan that Elena read 100 times, searching for hidden meaning, for hope, for anything that suggested he still cared. Stop looking, Elena. She showed it to Damon, her hands trembling, tears blurring the screen. Is that him telling me he's truly gone? Or is it him trying to protect me from Klaus? Damon took the phone gently, studied the message, then pulled Elena into his arms with careful tenderness. Does it matter? Either way, the answer is the same. We stop looking. We let him go. We move forward. So Elena did. She went back to school, reconnected with friends, tried to build a life that didn't revolve around saving Stefan Salvatore from himself. She attended classes and football games and pretended at normalcy with increasing success. And she let Damon Salvatore become more than Stefan's brother, more than her protector. Let him become the person she turned to, trusted, maybe even loved in ways that terrified and thrilled her. Stefan was lost, but Elena was finding herself. And sometimes survival meant accepting loss and choosing to live anyway. Stefan returned to Mystic Falls in late October, appearing at the Salvatore boarding house without warning or explanation. Elena arrived to find him standing in the parlor, looking almost like himself. The blood and violence scrubbed away, his expression carefully neutral. But his eyes remained cold, empty of the warmth she remembered. And Elena understood immediately that this wasn't a rescue or a homecoming. This was strategy. Stefan, Elena breathed, hope and caution warring in her chest. You're back. Does that mean? It means Klaus has business in Mystic Falls, Stefan interrupted, his voice flat and emotionless. I'm here because he's here. Don't read anything more into it. Damon appeared in the doorway, his body language shifting into protective tension. What does Klaus want? What he's always wanted, Stefan said. Power, control, the successful creation of hybrids. He's been experimenting for weeks, trying to turn werewolves into vampire werewolf hybrids like himself. But they keep dying or failing to complete the transition. He thinks the answer is here in Mystic Falls. Something about the doppelganger bloodline, about Elena's blood being the key. Elena felt cold dread settle in her stomach. He wants my blood for his hybrids. He needs your blood, Stefan corrected. The ritual that broke his curse used your blood. Apparently, your doppelganger genetics are necessary for successful hybrid transitions. Klaus has been draining Elena blood from corpses, but it's not working. He needs the living source. Absolutely not, Damon said immediately. Elena is not becoming Klaus's personal blood bank. Stefan's expression didn't change, remaining carefully blank. I'm just delivering information. What you do with it is your choice. But Klaus will take what he wants eventually. He always does. The plan formed over the following days, pieces falling into place with desperate hope and terrible risk. Mikkel had arrived in Mystic Falls, drawn by rumors that Klaus had returned to his old hunting grounds. Mikkel was the vampire who hunted vampires, the original who had terrified Klaus for 1,000 years. He was Klaus's stepfather, the man who had turned the Mikkelsen family into vampires and then spent eternity hunting them for the abomination they'd become. Mikkel can kill Klaus, Damon explained at a strategy meeting in the Salvatore parlor. He spent a millennium perfecting the art of murdering original vampires. We use Elena as bait, lure Klaus into the open, and Mikkel stakes him. Problem solved. Except for one detail, Stefan said from his position by the window. Killing Klaus kills every vampire in his bloodline. Caroline, Tyler, everyone Klaus has ever turned or who was turned by someone Klaus turned. They all die the moment he does. The revelation hit like a bomb. Caroline's face went white with terror and understanding. Tyler, who had recently returned to Mystic Falls, looked stricken. Thousands of vampires across the world were linked to Klaus through bloodlines that stretched back centuries. His death would trigger a cascade of deaths that included people Elena loved. There has to be another way, Elena insisted. We can't sacrifice Caroline and Tyler and countless others just to kill Klaus. There isn't another way, Mikkel said, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 years of hunting. Klaus must die. He's an abomination, a hybrid that should never have existed. His death is worth whatever collateral damage it causes. But Elena couldn't accept that calculus couldn't trade her friends' lives for Klaus's death. So they searched for alternatives, for loopholes, for any solution that didn't involve mass murder of innocent vampires. The homecoming dance became the setting for their attempted assassination, chosen because Klaus expected something to happen on homecoming, expected a trap, and his arrogance would make him walk into it anyway. The high school gymnasium was decorated with streamers and balloons, utterly normal and mundane, hiding the supernatural warfare about to erupt beneath its cheerful exterior. Elena wore a dress Caroline had picked out, red and beautiful and utterly wrong, for an evening that would end in blood and betrayal. She stood in the center of the gym, surrounded by oblivious students dancing and laughing, and she waited for Klaus to arrive, waited for Mikkel to make his move, waited for everything to either save them or destroy them. Klaus appeared precisely on time, his smile charming and dangerous, his eyes scanning the crowd with predatory assessment. He crossed directly to Elena, ignoring everyone else, his hand extended in invitation. "Dance with me," Klaus said. Not quite a question, not quite a command. Elena took his hand because refusing would reveal that something was wrong, that this was a trap. They moved onto the dance floor, and Klaus pulled her close with inappropriate familiarity, his voice dropping to intimate volume that only she could hear. "You're planning to kill me tonight," Klaus murmured, sounding almost amused. "I can smell the fear on you, the desperate hope that whatever plan you've concocted will actually work. Should I be flattered or insulted that you think you can outsmart a 1,000-year-old hybrid?" "I don't want to kill you," Elena said honestly. "I want you to leave us alone, to stop using people I love as pawns in your immortal games." "But I enjoy the games," Klaus said. "They're what make eternity bearable. Without conflict, without struggle, existence becomes unbearably dull. Surely you understand that, Elena. You've tasted enough supernatural chaos to know that normal is just another word for boring. Then Mikhail arrived, crashing through the gym doors with the fury of 1,000 years of hunting, and chaos erupted. Students screamed and scattered. Teachers tried to restore order without understanding what was happening. And Elena found herself shielded behind Klaus's body as Mikhail advanced with murder in his ancient eyes. "Hello, Father," Klaus said, the word dripping with venom and old pain. "Come to try killing me again. How many times has it been now? I've lost count." "This time I'll succeed," Mikhail promised, holding a white oak stake that could kill original vampires. "This time you die, boy, and the world is finally free of your abomination." The fight was brutal and fast. 2 original vampires moving with speed that human eyes couldn't track, strength that shattered concrete and bent metal. Lena watched in horror as they tore through the gymnasium, destroying everything in their path, locked in combat that had been 1,000 years in the making. Then Stefan intervened, appearing from nowhere, driving a stake through Mikhail's heart with surgical precision. The ancient vampire looked shocked, betrayed, his eyes finding Elena's across the chaos. "You were supposed to kill Klaus," Elena whispered, understanding and heartbreak warring in her chest. "Stefan, what have you done?" "I saved Klaus," Stefan said flatly, withdrawing the stake and letting Mikhail's body crumble to ash. "Because killing him would kill Caroline and Tyler and everyone in his bloodline. You said it yourself, Elena. We can't sacrifice innocent people, so I chose the lesser evil." But Elena saw truth in Stefan's expression, saw the calculation that went deeper than protecting Caroline and Tyler. Stefan had chosen Klaus over them, had betrayed their plan not out of nobility, but out of some twisted loyalty or strategy Elena didn't understand. Klaus smiled, slow and satisfied, and clapped Stefan on the shoulder with genuine appreciation. "Well done, my friend. I knew you'd come through when it mattered. This is why I turned off your humanity, why I compelled you to embrace the Ripper. You're so much more useful without that pesky conscience getting in the way." "You're welcome," Stefan said, his voice empty of emotion or regret. Elena felt something break inside her chest, some last thread of hope that Stefan could be saved. He just murdered the one person who could kill Klaus, had protected a monster over the people he claimed to love, had proven definitively that whatever humanity he'd possessed was truly completely gone. Damon appeared at her side, his hand finding hers, his fury barely contained. "We need to leave, now, before Klaus decides to celebrate his victory by draining you dry." They fled the gymnasium, leaving behind the wreckage of their failed plan and the ashes of Mikkel scattered across the dance floor. In the parking lot, Elena collapsed against Damon's car, sobs tearing from her throat, grief and rage and betrayal overwhelming her completely. "He chose Klaus," Elena gasped between sobs. "Stefan chose Klaus over us, over everything we were trying to accomplish. He's truly lost, Damon. There's nothing left of the person I loved." "I know," Damon said quietly, holding her while she broke apart. "I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry." The aftermath unfolded over the following days with grim inevitability. Klaus remained in Mystic Falls, powerful and untouchable, his victory complete. Stefan stayed at his side, the loyal soldier, showing no remorse for his betrayal. And Elena was forced to accept that the boy she'd loved, the vampire who had saved her from Wickery Bridge, no longer existed except in memory. But Stefan wasn't quite finished playing games. He stole something from Klaus, some leverage that would give him power over the hybrid. The coffins Klaus had been transporting for months, the desiccated bodies of his original siblings, disappeared from Klaus's possession. And Stefan sent a message that was pure strategy, wrapped in cruelty. Tell Klaus I have his family. If he wants them back, he'll negotiate. Otherwise, I start waking them up and convincing them to help me destroy him. It was brilliant and ruthless. Exactly the kind of move the Ripper would make. Stefan had protected Klaus from Mikhail, only to immediately betray him, stealing the leverage Klaus valued most. And Elena understood, with terrible clarity, that this was Stefan's plan all along, his strategy for defeating Klaus without triggering the bloodline deaths. He's still fighting, Bonnie said quietly when Elena explained Stefan's theft. Maybe his humanity is more present than we thought. Maybe he's been playing Klaus this whole time, waiting for the right moment to strike. Elena wanted to believe it, wanted to see heroism in Stefan's actions, but she'd watched him murder Mikhail without hesitation, watched him stand beside Klaus with empty eyes, watched him become someone she didn't recognize. And she couldn't shake the feeling that Stefan's betrayal of Klaus was just another manifestation of darkness, strategy without morality, intelligence without humanity. It doesn't matter, Elena said finally, her voice heavy with exhausted acceptance. Even if Stefan is fighting Klaus, even if he's been playing some long game, he's not the person I fell in love with. That Stefan is gone, and I need to stop waiting for him to come back. She looked at Damon, at the complicated man who had been there through everything, who had never asked her to choose, but had loved her anyway with patient devotion. And she made a decision that felt like both betrayal and survival. I'm done chasing Stefan, Elena said. I'm done putting my life on hold waiting for him to flip his humanity switch. He made his choices, and now I'm making mine. Damon's expression was carefully neutral, hope and caution balanced in equal measure. What choice is that? I choose to live, Elena said simply. To move forward instead of staying frozen in grief and waiting. I choose the people who are actually here, who actually care whether I survive. I choose you, Damon, if you'll have me. The kiss was inevitable, building through months of growing connection and denied attraction. Damon kissed Elena like she was precious, unbreakable, and worth every moment of waiting. And Elena kissed him back, letting go of Stefan, letting go of guilt, choosing life and love and the complicated present over the idealized past. Stefan's betrayal had broken her heart, but it had also freed her to choose differently, to love differently, to become someone new. And in the wreckage of homecoming, Elena Gilbert took her first real steps toward a future that didn't revolve around saving Stefan Salvatore from himself. The coffins held secrets that stretched back 1,000 years, desiccated bodies preserved by ancient magic, and Klaus's paranoid need to control his family even in their forced sleep. Stefan had stolen 4 coffins from Klaus's possession, leverage that gave him power over the hybrid who had spent months controlling him. But there was a 5th coffin, one Klaus protected with obsessive secrecy, one that held someone even Klaus feared waking. Elena stood in the Salvatore cellar, staring at the 4 coffins Stefan had arranged like trophies, their ornate construction speaking to centuries of craftsmanship and wealth. Damon stood beside her, his expression troubled by his brother's increasingly erratic behavior and the dangerous game Stefan was playing with original vampires. "We need to open them," Stefan said, his voice carrying that flat, emotionless quality that marked his humanity-free existence. "Figure out what Klaus values enough to negotiate for. Maybe use his siblings against him. Or maybe wake up 4 incredibly powerful vampires who will kill us for imprisoning them," Damon countered. "That seems like the more likely outcome." But Stefan was already moving toward the first coffin, his hands working the ancient locks with vampire strength and complete disregard for consequences. The lid opened with a creak of hinges that hadn't moved in decades, and Eleanor peered inside to see a desiccated body, grey and mummified, preserved by magic that kept death at bay without allowing true life. "Elijah," Stefan said, studying the body with clinical interest. "Klaus's brother, the noble one, the one who believes in honor and family above all else. He might be useful." Elena remembered Elijah from the sacrifice, remembered his old world courtesy and the genuine regret in his eyes when he'd explained her role in the ritual. He tried to protect her, had offered deals and promises, had shown more humanity than most vampires she'd encountered. Waking him felt less dangerous than the alternatives. "Do it," Elena said, making the decision before she could second guess it. "Wake Elijah. Maybe he'll help us against Klaus." The spell required Bonnie's magic, channeled through the Bennett bloodline, pulling Elijah back from whatever twilight existence desiccation created. His body jerked as color returned to grey flesh, as muscles filled out, as ancient eyes opened and fixed on Elena with immediate recognition. "Elena Gilbert," Elijah said, his voice rough from disuse but retaining that formal precision. "How long have I been desiccated?" "Months," Elena said. "Klaus has been keeping you and your siblings in coffins, moving you around the country. Stefan stole you as leverage against Klaus." Elijah sat up slowly, his movements controlled despite obvious weakness, and his expression shifted through several emotions before settling on cold fury. "My brother daggered me. Again. And you've woken me hoping I'll help you destroy him. How predictable. How human." "Will you help us?" Elena asked directly. "Klaus is terrorizing Mystic Falls, creating hybrids, using my blood for his experiments. He needs to be stopped." Elijah studied her for a long moment, his ancient eyes holding calculations Elena couldn't follow. "Klaus is my brother. Despite everything he's done, despite the centuries of betrayal and violence, he remains family. And family, Miss Gilbert, is not something I turn my back on lightly." But Elijah's presence changed the dynamics anyway, adding pressure Klaus couldn't ignore. The hybrid appeared at the Salvatore boarding house within hours of Elijah's awakening, his fury barely contained beneath civilized charm. "Brother," Klaus said, the word holding 1,000 years of complicated history. "How lovely to see you upright again. I assume the doppelganger and her friends are responsible for your premature resurrection." "They are," Elijah confirmed, straightening his suit with meticulous care. "And they've made quite compelling arguments for why I should help them eliminate you, Niklaus. Your reign of terror in this town has been excessive even by your standards." Klaus's smile was dangerous and sad in equal measure. "Everything I do is for family, Elijah. To protect us, to keep us together, to ensure we survive in a world that wants us dead. Surely you understand that." "I understand that you use family as justification for your worst impulses," Elijah replied. But very well, Niklas. I won't move against you, for now. But I expect you to negotiate with these people in good faith, to stop terrorizing them for your amusement. The negotiation resulted in a temporary truce, Klaus agreeing to limit his hybrid experiments in exchange for the return of his siblings. But the other coffins revealed complications that made simple peace impossible. Finn Mikkelsen, the oldest brother, woke with a death wish born of 1,000 years of exhausted existence. Carl Mikkelsen, chaotic and unpredictable, woke with violence in his eyes and no regard for human life. And Rebecca, Klaus's sister, woke with heartbreak over Stefan's manipulation, having believed his affection was genuine, only to discover he'd been using her to get close to Klaus. "You pretended to care about me," Rebecca said, confronting Stefan in the boarding house parlor, her voice breaking with genuine hurt beneath vampire rage. "You made me believe you saw me as more than just Klaus's sister, more than a means to an end. But it was all lies, wasn't it? Strategy without substance." Stefan's expression remained carefully blank. "Yes, I used you, seduced you to get information about Klaus, to position myself as trustworthy so I could eventually betray him. You were a tool, Rebecca, nothing more." The cruelty was deliberate and devastating, designed to hurt Rebecca as much as possible. But Eleanor saw something flicker in Stefan's eyes before he shuttered it, some ghost of guilt or regret that suggested his humanity wasn't as completely gone as he pretended. Rebecca's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks, and she fled with vampire speed, leaving behind the wreckage of trust Stefan had deliberately destroyed. Klaus appeared moments later, his expression murderous, his hands already shifting into claws. "You hurt my sister," Klaus said quietly, and the quietness was more terrifying than shouting. "You used her, manipulated her, broke her heart for strategy. That was a mistake, Stefan, a fatal one." But before Klaus could move, before violence could erupt, a woman appeared in the doorway with an authority that made even Klaus freeze. She was beautiful in an ethereal way, with eyes that held ancient power and a smile that promised both love and danger. "Niklas," she said, her accent suggesting old-world origins. "Is this any way to greet your mother?" Esther Mikkelsen had been dead for 1,000 years, killed by Klaus in a fit of rage after she'd cursed his werewolf nature. Her resurrection was impossible, a violation of natural law that suggested powerful magic at work. The original witch stood in the Salvatore parlor wearing flesh she shouldn't possess, and her children stared at her with complicated mixtures of love and fear and betrayal. "Mother," Elijah said, carefully, moving to stand between Esther and Klaus with protective instinct that had survived a millennium. "How are you here?" "The witch on the other side helped me," Esther said, referring to Bonnie's ancestor who had sacrificed herself. "She gave me the power to return, to fix the mistake I made 1,000 years ago, the mistake of creating vampires, of turning my children into monsters that have plagued humanity ever since." Klaus's expression shifted into understanding and rage. "You're here to kill us, your own children. That's why you've returned." "I'm here to give you peace," Esther corrected gently, "to undo the curse of immortality I placed upon you, to let you die as you should have died 1,000 years ago, as humans, with your souls intact and your humanity preserved." The revelation sent shockwaves through everyone present. Esther wanted to kill all the original vampires, to wipe out the source of all vampire bloodlines, to eliminate vampires from existence entirely. It was genocide wrapped in maternal love. Destruction disguised as salvation. "You can't be serious," Rebecca said, her voice shaking. "We're your children, Mother. You created us. You turned us into vampires. And now you want to murder us to fix your mistake." "I want to free you," Esther insisted. "Immortality is a curse, not a blessing. Look at what you've become across these 1,000 years. Killers, monsters, creatures who spread death wherever you walk. You've suffered enough, my children. Let me give you the peace of death." But the Michaelsons weren't interested in peace through death. They'd survived 1,000 years, had built lives and relationships and power structures across the globe. They weren't ready to surrender existence just because their mother had decided vampires were a mistake. The Michelson Ball happened 3 nights later. An elegant affair designed to present a united family front, while privately everyone plotted and strategized. Elena attended wearing a gown that made her feel like she'd stepped into another century, surrounded by vampires who had actually lived in those centuries, who remembered when such formality was normal rather than performance. Klaus danced with her, his hand possessive on her waist, his voice dropping to intimate volume. "My mother plans to kill me tonight. Link all of us together and stop our hearts simultaneously." Rather poetic, don't you think? The woman who made us immortal is the one who'll end our immortality. "Are you telling me this because you expect sympathy?" Elena asked, refusing to be charmed by Klaus's vulnerability. "I'm telling you this because you're part of her plan," Klaus said. "The doppelganger blood is necessary for the spell. Esther will try to use you tonight, Elena. Drain you or compel you or convince you that helping her kill us is the righteous choice. I'm asking you not to help her, for your sake as much as mine." Eleanor wanted to refuse, wanted to tell Klaus that she'd happily help anyone trying to kill him. But she thought of Caroline and Tyler and the thousands of vampires in Klaus's bloodline who would die if he died. Thought of the cascade of deaths that would follow the original's destruction. And she understood that Esther's plan, however noble in intention, was genocide on a massive scale. The attempted murder happened during the ball's crescendo. Esther channeling power through Bonnie and the Bennett bloodline, linking all the original siblings together through magic that would stop their hearts simultaneously. But Elijah intervened, choosing his siblings over his mother's plan, choosing family above righteousness. "I'm sorry, Mother," Elijah said, driving a stake through Esther's heart with tears streaming down his face. "But I cannot let you kill my family, even if we are monsters. Even if we deserve death, we are still your children, and we choose to live." Esther died with surprise in her eyes, her body crumbling to ash. Her plan for vampire extinction dying with her. And the original survived, bound together by their choice to protect each other despite centuries of betrayal and violence. But Esther's death triggered something else. Something dark and dangerous that had been building in the shadows. Alaric Saltzman, Elena's guardian and friend, had been changed by dark magic Esther had channeled through him. She transformed him into an enhanced original vampire hunter, giving him strength equal to an original vampire, but with a singular purpose: kill all vampires, especially the originals. "Alaric," Elena said, watching her friend's personality fracture, watching the kind history teacher disappear beneath something violent and ruthless. "You have to fight this. You have to resist the magic Esther put inside you." But Alaric's hunter persona was already emerging, overriding the human man beneath. His eyes were cold, focused, tracking Stefan and Damon and every vampire in the room with predatory assessment. "They're abominations," Alaric said, his voice flat and certain. "All of them. Vampires are parasites feeding on humanity, spreading their curse through bite and blood. Esther was right. They all need to die, and I am going to make sure that happens." He had a white oak stake, the only wood that could kill original vampires, carved from the tree that had been used in the immortality spell 1,000 years ago. With that stake, Alaric could eliminate the originals one by one, triggering the bloodline deaths that would kill thousands of vampires worldwide. The originals fled Mystic Falls, scattering to the winds. Klaus, taking his hybrids and his paranoid need for control to other cities where hunters couldn't easily reach him. Rebecca left with her heart broken and her trust destroyed. Elijah departed with his honor intact, but his family fractured, and Cole and Finn disappeared into whatever chaos suited them. Stefan remained behind, his humanity still switched off, his motivations unclear. He'd played Klaus, had stolen the coffins and woken the originals, had set in motion events that nearly destroyed the entire vampire species. But he showed no remorse, no concern, no emotion beyond cold satisfaction at having orchestrated chaos. "Why did you do it?" Elena asked him one night, confronting Stefan in the boarding house, desperate to understand his actions. Why wake the originals? Why trigger Esther's plan? What was the point of any of it? Stefan's expression was carefully blank. Strategy. Klaus needed to be weakened, needed to understand that he's not invulnerable. The originals needed to be reminded that family doesn't make them safe from consequences. And you needed to see what this world really is, Elena. Not good versus evil, but shades of grey where everyone has blood on their hands. "You sound like you're still the Ripper," Elena said quietly, "like your humanity is still off." "Maybe it is," Stefan replied. "Or maybe this is who I really am beneath all the pretense. Maybe the good vampire was always a lie, and the monster is the truth." Elena looked at him, at this stranger wearing Stefan's face, and she felt the last threads of hope snap completely. He wasn't coming back. The Stefan she'd loved was truly gone, buried so deep beneath darkness and strategy that he might never resurface. "Then I'm done waiting," Elena said, "done hoping you'll flip the switch and remember how to feel. You've made your choice, Stefan, and I'm making mine." She walked away from him, from the boarding house, from the wreckage of what they'd been, and she didn't look back, choosing instead to move forward into whatever future awaited, knowing that some things once broken couldn't be repaired. The originals were gone but not forgotten. Alaric hunted them with enhanced original strength and singular focus, and Eleanor Gilbert stood in the center of supernatural chaos, learning that family was complicated, that morality was murky, and that sometimes survival meant accepting that monsters could love each other even while destroying everything around them. The transformation happened gradually at first, Alaric's personality fracturing into pieces that didn't quite fit together anymore. Elena noticed it during mundane moments, watching her guardian's face shift between the kind history teacher she'd known for years and something harder, colder, utterly devoid of the compassion that had defined him. One moment he was making breakfast and asking about her homework. The next, his eyes would go distant and calculating, tracking invisible threats only he could perceive. "I killed a vampire last night," Alaric said casually one morning over coffee, his voice flat and matter-of-fact. "Found one feeding in an alley downtown. Staked it through the heart and watched it turn to ash. Felt good. Felt right." Elena's hand froze halfway to her mug, cold dread pooling in her stomach. "Alaric, that's not you talking. That's Esther's magic, the dark spell she channeled through you. You have to fight it." "Why would I fight it?" Alaric asked, his expression shifting into something Elena didn't recognize. "Esther gave me purpose, gave me the strength to do what needs to be done. Vampires are parasites, Elena. They feed on humans, spread their curse through blood and bite, create more monsters to prey on the innocent. Someone has to stop them. Why shouldn't it be me?" Bonnie explained the magic in clinical terms, trying to make sense of what Esther had done. She linked Alaric's life to yours through the Gilbert bloodline, made him an enhanced original, strong as Klaus, but with humanity intact initially. But the spell has side effects. Dark magic always does. It's splitting his personality, creating a hunter persona that's overriding the human man. "Can you break it?" Elena asked desperately. "Can you undo what Esther did?" Bonnie's expression was troubled, her hands trembling slightly with the weight of what she was about to say. "Breaking. It would kill Alaric. The magic is woven through his entire being now. Removing it means removing the life force keeping him alive. And even if we could break the spell, there's another problem. Alaric's life is tied to yours. If you die, the hunter dies with you. It's Esther's failsafe, her way of ensuring Alaric can't be killed while he's hunting originals." Eleanor felt trapped by magic she hadn't consented to. Her existence transformed into an anchor for a supernatural hunter who was slowly losing his humanity. Every breath she took kept Alaric alive, kept him hunting vampires, kept him becoming more monster than man. The hunter persona grew stronger with each passing day, taking control for longer periods, pushing Alaric's human consciousness deeper into shadows. He moved through mystic falls with predatory focus, tracking Stefan and Damon and Caroline, studying their patterns, learning their weaknesses, preparing for the moment when he would eliminate them permanently. "You need to leave town," Elena told Caroline during an emergency meeting at the grill. "Alaric is hunting you, all of you, and he has the strength to actually succeed." Caroline's face was pale with fear, her vampire confidence shaken by the knowledge that her former ally had become her executioner. "Where am I supposed to go? Klaus is out there somewhere, still demanding my loyalty, because Tyler's in his bloodline. The originals are scattered but still dangerous. And now Alaric wants to stake me through the heart. There's nowhere safe, Elena." "Then we find a way to stop him," Elena said, though she had no idea how to accomplish that. "We find a way to bring the real Alaric back, to suppress the hunter long enough to break the spell." But the hunter was already moving, already executing plans that Alaric's human consciousness had no memory of making. He'd found the white oak tree, the ancient wood that could kill original vampires, and he'd carved stakes from it with meticulous precision. 11 stakes for 11 originals, though several were already dead or lost to history. Enough to eliminate Klaus, Elijah, Rebecca, Cole, and Finn if the hunter could find them. Stefan's humanity began flickering back during this chaos, triggered by the threat Alaric posed to Damon and everyone else Stefan had once cared about. Elena saw saw it in small moments. Cracks in the Ripper facade that revealed the boy beneath. Stefan's eyes would soften when he looked at her, then harden again as he fought against the feelings trying to resurface. His voice would catch on Damon's name before he schooled it back to flatness. "I can feel it," Stefan admitted to Elena during a tense encounter in the boarding house. "My humanity trying to claw its way back. Every time I see Alaric hunting Damon, every time I watch you put yourself in danger, something inside me screams that I should care, that I should protect you. But I've been buried so long. I don't know if I remember how to feel anymore." "Then, remember," Elena urged, taking his cold hands in her warm ones. "Remember what it felt like to love, to hope, to care about people more than strategy. Remember who you were before Klaus, before the Ripper. That person is still in there, Stefan. I know it." Stefan's face twisted with something that might have been pain, might have been longing. "What if I flip the switch and I can't handle what I've done? What if the guilt destroys me? I've killed hundreds of people, Elena. Murdered them brutally, artistically, without remorse. How do I come back from that?" "One moment at a time," Elena said simply. "You face what you've done, you carry the weight, and you choose to be better going forward. That's all any of us can do." The moment Stefan's humanity returned was both beautiful and devastating. Elena saw it happen, watched his expression shift from empty to overwhelmed, watched a century and a half of suppressed emotions crash over him like a tidal wave. Stefan collapsed to his knees, his body shaking with sobs that tore from his chest with violent force. "Oh God," Stefan gasped, his hands covering his face as memories flooded back. "Oh God, what have I done? All those people, all that blood. Elena, I killed them. I tore them apart and I felt nothing, and now I remember all of it. And I can't. Elena dropped beside him, wrapping her arms around Stefan's trembling form, holding him while he broke apart under the weight of returned humanity. Damon appeared in the doorway, his expression complicated as he watched his brother suffer through the consequences of months spent as the Ripper. "Welcome back," Damon said quietly. "It's going to hurt for a while. The guilt, the memories, the knowledge of what you've done. But you survive it, Stefan. You find a way to live with yourself. I know because I've done it 1,000 times." Stefan looked at his brother with devastated eyes. "I betrayed you. I worked with Klaus, protected him, let him use me as a weapon against everyone I loved. How do you forgive that?" "I don't," Damon said honestly. "Not yet, maybe not ever. But you're my brother, and you're back, and that's enough for now. We'll figure out the rest later." But there was no time for reconciliation, no space for healing. Alaric's hunter persona had taken complete control, burying the human teacher beneath layers of dark magic and singular purpose. He tracked the Salvatores with enhanced original strength, armed with white oak stakes that could end their existence permanently if driven through their hearts. The confrontation happened in the high school, familiar territory transformed into a battleground. Alaric moved through empty hallways with predatory grace, his footsteps echoing off lockers that had witnessed so much mundane teenage drama, now hosting supernatural warfare. "Alaric," Elena called out, her voice echoing through the corridor. "I know you can hear me, the real you buried under Esther's magic. You have to fight this. You have to resist." The hunter emerged from shadows, his face a cold mask that showed no recognition of the girl he'd helped raise. Elena Gilbert, the doppelganger. My life is tied to yours, which means I can't kill you. Unfortunate, but I can kill the vampires you insist on protecting. Stefan and Damon appeared from opposite ends of the hallway, flanking the hunter, their vampire faces on, their bodies tense with readiness to fight. But enhanced original strength made Alaric faster, stronger, nearly impossible to defeat through force alone. "We don't want to hurt you," Stefan said, his newly returned humanity making his voice shake with genuine emotion. "Your family, Alaric. You've been there for all of us. Don't make us fight you." "You're already dead," Alaric replied flatly. "You just haven't accepted it yet. All vampires die eventually. I'm simply accelerating the inevitable." The fight was brutal and one-sided. The hunter's enhanced original abilities overwhelming. Even two Salvatore brothers working together. Alaric moved with speed that blurred, strength that shattered bones, precision born of supernatural knowledge implanted by Esther's spell. He drove Stefan through a wall, staked Damon through the shoulder, created chaos and destruction with surgical efficiency. Eleanor watched in horror, understanding that they couldn't win through combat, couldn't defeat Alaric through force when he possessed original level power. The only way to stop him was to reach the human man buried beneath the hunter, to remind Alaric Saltzman who he'd been before dark magic transformed him. "Alaric," Elena said, stepping between the hunter and his vampire targets, her body shielding Stefan and Damon despite the danger. "I know you're in there. I know you remember loving Jenna, remember being my teacher, remember all the times you chose to help vampires instead of hunting them. That's who you really are, not this, not a killer created by dark magic." The hunter hesitated, his stake raised, his expression flickering with something that might have been recognition. "Jenna," he repeated, the name sounding strange in his flat voice. "I remember someone named Jenna, but she's dead, killed by vampires, which proves my point." "She was killed by Klaus," Elena corrected, "an original vampire who you're supposed to be hunting. But instead you're targeting Stefan and Damon, who have protected this town, protected me, fought beside you for years. That's not justice, Alaric. That's just murder." The internal struggle played across Alaric's face. Human consciousness fighting against hunter programming, love battling purpose. For a moment, Elena thought she'd reached him, thought Alaric would resurface and suppress the darkness Esther had planted. But then the hunter's expression hardened, decision made, and he moved with supernatural speed toward Damon. White oak stake aimed at his heart. Elena screamed, throwing herself forward, but she was human too, slow to intervene, helpless to stop what was about to happen. Bonnie appeared from nowhere, magic crackling around her hands, power channeled from the Bennett bloodline and amplified by desperation. She threw a spell that hit Alaric like a physical blow, driving him backward, giving Damon precious seconds to dodge the killing strike. "We need to desiccate him," Bonnie gasped, her nose bleeding from magical exertion. "It's the only way to stop the hunter without killing him. We dry him out, put him in a coffin, wait for a solution that doesn't involve his death or yours." The spell required massive amounts of power, more than Bonnie possessed alone. But Eleanor had learned that desperate times required desperate measures, and she offered her blood willingly, letting Bonnie channel doppelganger magic through the ritual. The spell wrapped around Alaric like invisible chains, draining moisture from his cells, forcing his body into the twilight state between life and death that desiccation created. Alaric fought it, his enhanced original strength making resistance possible, making the spell struggle to take hold. But eventually, magic won over muscle, and Alaric's body went still and grey, preserved in supernatural stasis that would keep him safe without keeping him dangerous. They buried him in a coffin in the Salvatore cellar, right beside the empty coffins that had held the original siblings. Elena stood over Alaric's desiccated form, tears streaming down her face, mourning another loss, another person taken by supernatural violence. "We'll find a way to fix this," Stefan promised, his hand gentle on Elena's shoulder. "We'll find a way to break the spell, to bring Alaric back without the hunter persona. I swear it, Elena." But Elena had heard promises before, had watched them break against the reality of supernatural existence. Alaric was gone, not dead, but not alive, trapped in magical stasis, because killing him would kill Elena, and letting him live would mean death for every vampire in Mystic Falls. Klaus had fled the town, taking his hybrids and his paranoid need for control to New Orleans or some other city where hunters couldn't easily reach him. The threat he represented remained, distant but not eliminated, a problem deferred rather than solved. Stefan remained in Mystic Falls, his humanity returned but fragile, struggling under the weight of months spent as the Ripper. He and Elena talked about what they'd been, what they might become, but the conversation felt more like goodbye than reconciliation. "I love you," Stefan said quietly. "I never stopped loving you, even with my humanity off. But I also see what's happening between you and Damon. And I understand it, Elena. He was there when I wasn't. He protected you when I was busy being Klaus's weapon. You've moved on, and that's okay." "I haven't moved on," Elena protested, but the lie felt obvious even to her. I needed someone, and Damon was there. It doesn't mean I stopped loving you." "No," Stefan agreed. "It just means you started loving him too. And that's okay, Elena. People's hearts are big enough for complicated feelings. You can love both of us. But eventually, you'll have to choose. And I think you've already chosen. You just haven't admitted it yet." The truth settled over Elena like a heavy blanket, uncomfortable and undeniable. She had chosen Damon somewhere along the way, had let her feelings for him grow from gratitude into something deeper, something that felt more real than her relationship with Stefan had ever been. "I'm sorry," Elena whispered. "Don't be," Stefan said, and he smiled, genuine despite the pain in his eyes. Love isn't something to apologize for, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Alaric slept in his coffin, preserved by magic, waiting for salvation that might never come. Klaus ran from hunters, his victory over his curse tainted by constant fear of the enhanced original tracking him. And Elena stood between the Salvatore brothers, her heart pulled in directions she was finally ready to acknowledge. The struggle continued, but something fundamental had shifted, and nothing would ever be quite the same again. The choice had been building for months, inevitable as sunrise, unavoidable as the tides. Elena stood between the Salvatore brothers, her heart pulled in opposite directions by love that felt equally real, but fundamentally different. Stefan represented her past, the boy who had saved her from Wickery Bridge. who had shown her the supernatural world with gentle hands and protective devotion. Damon represented her present, the man who had been there through every loss, who had loved her without expectation of reciprocation, who had made her feel strong instead of fragile. Spring arrived in Mystic Falls with warmth that felt almost cruel after the long winter of supernatural chaos. Elena walked through the cemetery, visiting graves that accumulated with horrifying regularity. Her parents, Jenna, John, and now Alaric's empty plot, waiting for a body that lay desiccated in the Salvatore cellar. So much death, so much loss, all connected to her existence as the doppelganger. Stefan found her there among the headstones, his expression soft with understanding and sadness. He'd been different since his humanity returned, gentler somehow, weighted by guilt, but also freed from the need to pretend he was okay. They'd been talking more, rebuilding fragments of what they'd been. But Elena felt the distance growing rather than shrinking. "I've been thinking," Stefan said, sitting beside her on the bench near her parents' graves, "about us, about what we were and what we are now. And I think we need to be honest about something we've both been avoiding." Elena's throat tightened with the knowledge of what was coming. "Stefan." "You love Damon," Stefan interrupted gently. "Really love him. Not just gratitude or comfort or rebound feelings. And I can see it, Elena. I can see how you light up when he walks into a room, how you turn to him first when something happens, how you trust him in ways you never quite trusted me. Because I always held parts of myself back, always tried to protect you from the darkness. But Damon gives you everything, even the ugly truths, especially the ugly truths." "I love you too," Elena said, tears streaming down her face. "Stefan, I do love you. You were my first love. You saved my life. You showed me that monsters could be gentle. That doesn't just disappear." "I know," Stefan said, taking her hands with careful tenderness. "And I love you. I'll always love you. But loving someone and being right for someone aren't always the same thing. We grew together, Elena. We helped each other survive impossible circumstances. But maybe we were never meant to be forever. Maybe we were just meant to be first." The conversation felt like breaking and healing simultaneously. Painful but necessary. Ending something while acknowledging its value. Elena cried into Stefan's shoulder while he held her, both of them mourning what they'd been while accepting what they'd become. "I don't want to hurt you," Elena whispered. "You're not," Stefan assured her. "You're being honest. And that's kinder than pretending. Kinder than staying out of obligation while your heart is somewhere else. Choose Damon, Elena. Choose what makes you happy. I'll be okay. Eventually." But the universe had other plans, darker plans. Plans that involved ancient curses and magical consequences Elena couldn't foresee. Alaric's transformation into the enhanced original had triggered something, weakened the barrier between living and dead, created vulnerabilities in the magical protections that kept Mystic Falls relatively safe. Bonnie felt it first, her witch sensitivity picking up disturbances in the supernatural fabric. "Something's wrong," she said during an emergency meeting at the Salvatore boarding house. "The magic that sustains Alaric is connected to Elena through the Gilbert bloodline. But it's also connected to the other side, to the boundary between life and death. And that boundary is becoming unstable." "What does that mean?" Elena asked, dread pooling in her stomach. It means if Alaric dies while linked to you, the feedback could kill you too, Bonnie explained, her voice shaking with fear and exhaustion. But if you die, Alaric dies automatically because you're his anchor. It's a magical catch-22. Either one of you dying triggers the other's death, and the instability means that state can't continue indefinitely without catastrophic consequences. Damon's expression went cold with protective fury. Then we break the link. Cut Elena free from Alaric, let him die or stay desiccated without dragging her down with him. I've tried, Bonnie said. The magic is too complex, too deeply woven. Esther designed it to be unbreakable, a failsafe to ensure her hunter couldn't be easily eliminated. Breaking it would require power I don't possess, sacrifice I can't make. The solution, when it came, arrived in the form of an unexpected ally. Rebecca Mickelson returned to Mystic Falls with vengeance in her heart and a grudge against Elena that had been simmering since Stefan's betrayal. She blamed Elena for everything, for existing, for looking like Catherine, for being the reason Stefan had pretended to love her. "You took everything from me," Rebecca said, cornering Elena in the high school parking lot with vampire speed and original strength. Stefan's affection was a lie because he was obsessed with saving you. Klaus's attention was divided because you were the doppelganger he needed for his hybrids. Even my own death and resurrection revolved around your precious bloodline. I'm so tired of the world revolving around Elena Gilbert. "I never asked for any of this," Elena said, her voice steady despite fear making her heart race. "I didn't choose to be a doppelganger. I didn't ask Stefan to fall in love with me or Klaus to need my blood. I'm just trying to survive, Rebecca, same as you. But you get to be human," Rebecca spat, tears of frustration streaming down her face. "You get to age and change and have a normal lifespan, with natural death at the end. I've been 17 for 1,000 years, Elena. 1,000 years of watching everyone I care about die or leave or betray me. And you have the audacity to complain about being special, about being needed, about having two Salvatore brothers fighting over you." The confrontation escalated from words to violence, Rebecca's grief and rage manifesting as physical aggression. She grabbed Elena, compelling her with original vampire power that overwhelmed human resistance, and she drove them both toward Wickery Bridge with terrible symmetry. Matt Donovan was with Elena that night, driving her home from the hospital where she'd been visiting Jeremy, who had been admitted for drug-related complications. Matt was steady, normal, the friend who had known her before any of this supernatural chaos, who represented the life she might have had if Wickery Bridge had never claimed her parents. "Matt, stop the car," Elena said urgently, feeling Rebecca's compulsion pushing against her consciousness. "Something's wrong. I can feel her in my head making me." But Rebecca was already there, standing in the middle of Wickery Bridge, like a vengeful ghost, her expression twisted with pain and fury. Matt swerved, trying to avoid her, but Rebecca moved with supernatural speed, striking the truck's side panel with enough force to send it spinning out of control. The truck crashed through the wooden railing with a sound like thunder, and Eleanor felt déjà vu so powerful it stole her breath. This was how her parents had died, in this exact spot, their car plunging into the water below. History was repeating itself with cruel precision, the universe demanding payment in Gilbert blood. The impact was brutal, glass shattering, metal, screaming, Elena's head cracking against something hard. Water poured in through broken windows, cold and relentless, flooding the truck's interior with terrifying speed. And Elena's mind, concussed and struggling, could only think one coherent thought. Not again, please, not again. Matt, Elena's voice was slurred, blood in her mouth, vision swimming. Matt, we have to get out. But her seatbelt was jammed, the mechanism crushed by impact, holding her pinned as water climbed toward her chin, her nose covering her completely. She held her breath, watching bubbles escape toward the surface, and she thought with strange clarity about her father's choice all those years ago. Grayson Gilbert had told Stefan to save Elena first, to leave him and Miranda behind if necessary. He'd chosen his daughter's life over his own, had made Stefan promise to prioritize Elena's survival. And now, trapped in the same water off the same bridge, Elena faced the same impossible choice. Stefan appeared, diving through the shattered windshield with that supernatural grace. His hands reaching for Elena first because that's what he always did, what her father had commanded him to do. But Elena spoke through the water, her voice bubbling out with the last of her air. Save Matt first. Stefan's eyes widened with shock and recognition and terrible understanding. She was giving him her father's choice in reverse, asking him to save someone else, to let her drown if it came to that. She was choosing sacrifice over survival, choosing to honor her father's legacy by making the same decision he'd made. Please, Elena said, or tried to say, the word lost in bubbles and darkness. Matt first. Stefan hesitated for one agonized second, history and present colliding in his expression. Then he grabbed Matt, tearing through the seatbelt with vampire strength, pulling him from the sinking truck. Elena watched them go, watched Stefan swim toward the surface with Matt in tow, and she felt strangely peaceful. If she died here, at least it would be her choice, her decision, her sacrifice instead of someone else's. The water filled her lungs, her body convulsing, desperate for air that wouldn't come. Her heart stuttered, struggled, began to fail. And Eleanor felt death approaching with the cold certainty she'd felt during Klaus's sacrifice, during every near-death experience that marked her supernatural existence. Then Stefan was back, his hands on her shoulders, tearing through her seatbelt with desperate strength. He pulled her from the truck and kicked toward the surface, his movements urgent now, frantic, trying to undo the choice she'd forced him to make. But it was too late. Elena knew it even before they broke the surface, even before Stefan laid her on the muddy bank and started chest compressions with hands that shook. She'd been underwater too long. Her heart had stopped. Her brain had been deprived of oxygen for critical minutes. She was dead. Clinically and completely dead. Except for one small detail that changed everything. One fact that made this death different from all the others. Earlier that day, Damon had given Elena his blood. She'd been injured helping Jeremy, nothing serious, just a cut that had bled more than it should. Damon had insisted she drink just a little vampire blood to heal faster, to be safe, a precaution they'd all grown accustomed to. Vampire blood in her system, death by drowning. The equation was simple and devastating. Elena woke on the bank coughing water, gasping for air, her body alive again, but fundamentally changed. She could feel it immediately, the difference humming through her veins like electricity. Her senses were sharper, sounds louder, smells more distinct. The constant thirst for blood hadn't started yet, but she knew it was coming, knew what this meant. She was in transition. Human death with vampire blood in her system meant she had 24 hours to complete the transformation by drinking human blood, or refuse and die permanently. "No," Elena whispered, the word tearing from her throat. No. This can't be happening. I can't. Stefan's face was stricken with guilt and horror. "Elena, I'm so sorry. I tried to get back to you faster, tried to save you in time. But you made me save Matt first, and by the time I came back..." "You did what I asked," Elena said numbly. "You honored my choice, just like you honored my father's choice. We're even now, Stefan. Finally even." But even wasn't the right word for this. Wasn't adequate to describe the magnitude of what had just happened. Elena had died and come back as something other. Something that would require human blood to complete the transformation. Something that would make her a vampire if she chose to drink. They took her to the Salvatore boarding house, the same place Stefan had first told her about vampires, where her education in the supernatural had begun. Elena sat in Stefan's room feeling the transition, working through her body like a disease, amplifying every sensation, every emotion, every fear she'd ever had about becoming a vampire. "I don't want this," Elena said, her voice hollow. "I never wanted to be a vampire. I wanted to be human, to grow old, to have children, to have a normal life. And now that choice is gone, stolen by Rebecca's revenge and Damon's blood, and my own decision to save Matt first." Caroline sat beside her, taking her hands with surprising gentleness. "I know it's scary. I know it feels like the end of everything you wanted. But Elena, you can have a good life as a vampire. You can be strong and fast and powerful. You can protect the people you love instead of always needing protection. And you can still be you, still hold onto your humanity, still be Elena Gilbert, even if you're also a vampire." "What if I lose myself?" Elena whispered. "What if the emotions are too much and I flip the switch like Stefan did? I've seen what vampires become when they turn off their humanity. I've seen the darkness. What if that's all that's waiting for me?" Damon appeared in the doorway, his expression carefully controlled, but his eyes showing the guilt and fear he couldn't quite hide. "Then we make sure you don't flip the switch. We help you manage the emotions, teach you control, give you every tool you need to stay yourself. You're the strongest person I know, Elena. If anyone can be a vampire and hold on to their humanity, it's you." The 24 hours ticked away with terrible inexorability, each minute bringing Elena closer to the moment when she would have to choose: complete the transition by drinking human blood and become a vampire, or refuse and let death claim her permanently. She spent the time saying potential goodbyes, writing letters to Jeremy and Bonnie and everyone she loved, preparing for whichever ending she chose. She talked with Stefan about their relationship, about gratitude and love and acceptance that they'd been important to each other without being forever. She talked with Damon about feelings she'd been too scared to acknowledge, about love that felt different than what she felt for Stefan. Deeper, somehow, more real. "I don't want to die," Elena admitted to Damon as the deadline approached. "I'm terrified of what comes after, terrified of becoming a vampire, terrified of losing my humanity. But I'm more terrified of not existing, of giving up, of wasting all the sacrifices people made to keep me alive. My parents died so I could live. Jenna died, John died, so many people have died. How can I throw that away by choosing death now? Then live, Damon said simply. Choose to complete the transition. Choose to be a vampire. And I'll be here every step of the way, helping you adjust, teaching you control, making sure you never lose yourself. Eleanor made her decision in those final hours, understanding that it wasn't really a choice at all. Too many people had died to keep her alive for her to give up. Now, to surrender to death when survival was possible. She would complete the transition, would become a vampire, would face whatever that meant with as much courage as she could muster. Jeremy offered his blood, her little brother standing in front of her with love and fear in his eyes, willing to let her feed from him to complete her transformation. But the thought of biting Jeremy, of sinking teeth into her brother's flesh, was too horrible to contemplate. Damon offered instead, filling a glass with his own blood, vampire blood that would complete the transition and bind Eleanor to immortality. She took the glass with trembling hands, looking at the dark liquid that would irrevocably change her life. "I love you," Elena said to Damon, the words feeling important to speak before she crossed this threshold. "I should have said it sooner, should have admitted it to myself and to you. But I love you, Damon Salvatore. And I'm choosing to live because I want a future with you, even if that future is eternal and vampiric and nothing like what I imagined." "I love you too," Damon said, his voice rough with emotion. "I have from the beginning. And I'll love you human or vampire, mortal or immortal. Whatever you become, Elena, I'm yours." Elena drank, the blood hitting her system like fire, like electricity, like coming alive for the first time. Every cell responded, transforming, completing the change that death had started. She felt her humanity shifting, not disappearing, but altering, becoming something other, something that would never be quite human again. When the glass was empty, Elena set it down with hands that no longer trembled. She looked up at Damon, at Stefan, at Caroline and Bonnie, and everyone who had gathered to witness her transformation, and she understood that she had just crossed a threshold from which there was no return. "I'm a vampire," Eleanor said, testing the words, feeling their weight and truth. "I'm actually a vampire now." The reality of it crashed over her in waves. She would never age beyond 18, would never have children, would never taste real food without it turning to ash, would never feel truly warm again. But she would have time, centuries of it potentially, to figure out who she was now, what this new existence meant, and she would have Damon and the people she loved, and the chance to make her immortality mean something beyond just survival. Elena Gilbert had died at Wickery Bridge and been reborn as something other, and her new vampire life was just beginning. And so Elena Gilbert's transformation was complete. Her journey from ordinary teenager to supernatural survivor, reaching this inevitable conclusion. She'd fought against becoming a vampire with every fiber of her being, had clung to her humanity like a lifeline, had believed that staying human was the only way to honor the people who had died to protect her. But Wickery Bridge had other plans. The same bridge that had claimed her parents, the same water that had drowned Grayson and Miranda Gilbert. History repeated itself with cruel precision, taking Eleanor's humanity the way it had taken her family, leaving her changed in ways she'd never wanted but would have to accept. She chose to complete the transition, chose life over death, chose to drink blood and become the thing she'd feared since the night Stefan first told her vampires existed. And in that choice, Elena discovered something profound about herself, something she'd always known but never quite believed. She was a survivor, not because she was special or chosen or marked by cosmic forces, but because she refused to give up, refused to let loss and trauma define the boundaries of her existence. The struggles she'd faced, the battles between Catherine's cruelty and Klaus's ambition, between Stefan's darkness and her own fear, between choosing safety and choosing love, all of it had been preparing her for this moment, for the understanding that being strong didn't mean never breaking. It meant choosing to rebuild after you shattered into pieces. Elena would learn to navigate the vampire existence the way she'd learned to navigate everything else, one moment at a time, one choice at a time, one breath at a time, even though breathing was no longer necessary for survival. She would manage the bloodlust that Caroline warned about, would control the amplified emotions that threatened to overwhelm her, would hold onto her humanity with desperate determination because losing it meant losing herself. And she would love Damon Salvatore, the complicated man who had waited for her with patient devotion, who had loved her without expectation of reciprocation, who had been there through every loss and every struggle. Their love had been built in darkness and chaos, forged through supernatural trials that would have destroyed lesser connections. But it was real, honest in ways her relationship with Stefan had never quite achieved, and it would sustain her through whatever came next. Stefan had let her go with grace and understanding, accepting that sometimes first love and forever love were different things, that people could matter immensely to each other without being meant for eternity. He would heal from the heartbreak, would find his own path forward, would learn to carry the weight of his Ripper months without letting the guilt destroy him. And someday, maybe, he and Elena would rebuild a friendship from the wreckage of their romance, would find a way to care about each other without the complications of romantic love. The supernatural world would continue its endless churn of threats and chaos. Klaus would keep creating hybrids, keep running from hunters, keep being the monster he'd been shaped into by 1,000 years of trauma and survival. The originals would scatter and reunite, would betray and protect each other, would demonstrate that family was complicated even when you'd known each other for a millennium, and knew threats would emerge, because they always did, because mystic fools sat on supernatural convergence points that drew danger like moss to flame. But Eleanor Gilbert was no longer the fragile human who needed constant protection, who served as bait and victim and damsel waiting for rescue. She was a vampire now, with strength and speed and the power to protect instead of always needing protection. She could stand beside Damon and Stefan and Caroline as an equal, could fight the battles instead of watching from the sidelines, could choose her own fate instead of having it chosen for her by cosmic forces and ancient curses. The doppelganger curse still marked her, still made her blood valuable to those who needed it for rituals and spells. But being a vampire meant that blood was no longer quite so accessible, no longer quite so easy to drain. Catherine had understood this 5 centuries ago when she'd turned herself to escape Klaus's sacrifice. Being undead meant being unusable for certain supernatural purposes. It was armor made of immortality, protection purchased through transformation. Eleanor would miss being human, would grieve for the future she'd lost, for the children she'd never carry, for the normal life that had always been just out of reach. But she would also discover joys she'd never imagined, experiences that only immortality could offer, time enough to become whoever she wanted to be without the pressure of mortality's countdown. And tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let Elena's journey remind you that transformation is not always chosen, but can still be survived. That losing what we thought we needed can sometimes free us to discover what we actually want. That love comes in different forms, and all of them matter, even the ones that end, even the ones that hurt. The struggle continues, as it always does, between darkness and light, between who we were and who we're becoming. But Elena Gilbert has shown us that survival is not just about enduring. It's about choosing, again and again, to live fully despite impossible circumstances. So rest now, gentle dreamer. Let the story fade into the peaceful darkness behind your closed eyes. Let Elena's transformation remind you that change, even unwanted change, can be the beginning of something new, rather than just the ending of something old. Tomorrow brings new struggles, new choices, new chances to decide who we become in the face of what we cannot control. But tonight, there is only peace, only breath, only the gentle drift into dreams where nothing is required except rest. Sleep well, sleepy hearts. Elena's story continues, as all our stories continue, written in choices and consequences, and the stubborn refusal to surrender. And yours continues tomorrow, in whatever form it takes, in whatever choices you make. Good night.